So good day to everybody. So for today, we will be discussing about lesson 2, which is the sociological views of self. For our learning objective, we will going to compare and contrast what is self in society and culture. Then we explain how culture and society influence the development of self. Then we describe the concept of looking glass self and how it affects our self concept. Then we explain the concept of self comparison and why it is important to human behavior. Okay, so as we know that the self is not produced in solitude, and people do not come into the world with preconceived notion of who they are. Okay, so in this lesson, we will examine the field of social science known as sociology and learn about its objectives, approach, and application. So basically, it is interested in the study of people in a group setting rather than as solitary beings. So it is the methodical study of social interactions and human society. Okay, so pag-aralan natin kung ano yung effect sa development natin, sa development ng isang individual, yung constant interaction niya because we are social being. So we are constantly interacting with other people or with other being. So kapag walang interaction na nangyayari, kapag na-isolate daw tayo, okay, sa interaction natin, okay, hindi tayo nadidevelop. There are true to life stories. Okay, there are true to life stories of feral children. These are children na hindi sila na-isolate sila, hindi sila na-develop at na mimic nila o nagaya nila yung behavior ng kung sino man yung nakasama nila at that time. So for example, yung isang bata na-isolate siya or sa kabihasnan, napunta siya sa forest, okay, wherein ang kasama niya ay puro mga hayop. Hindi marunong magsalita, hindi marunong maglakad ng tuwid, and so on and so forth. So since yun yung nakikita ng bata, yun yung mga behavior na gagayahin niya. Hindi siya magsasalita, pagka aso yung kasama niya, kakahon siya, hindi siya maglalakad ng diretso, so maglalakad siya using the hand and the feet like the aso. Okay? So these are children na lumaki sa wilderness, okay? O yung mga wild, hindi sila mga civilized because they have been isolated. Okay, so meron ding mga true to life story about Home Alone. Kung naalala ninyo yung pinikulan na Home Alone. Okay, yung na-isolate yung bata from the family. Okay, and then mag-isa siyang nag-travel o pumunta somewhere. Okay, so mga nangyayari talaga yun sa totoong buhay. And then we have this Castaway. So para ding yung isang pelikula na Castaway wherein na-aksidente, nasa laot, nagkaroon ng aksidente, and then na-isolate siya, napunta siya sa isang isla, siya lang mag-isa, and then kinailangan niyang mabuhay, mag-survive. Kaya dun sa isolation niya, okay, sa pagkaka-isolate niya sa kabihasnan, malaki rin yung epekto sa kanyang pagkatao. So, in-include ko dito yung mga link wherein you can click, okay, click this link para makita ninyo, mabasa ninyo itong mga true to life stories na to. Yan ang sinasabi ko. Okay, so, it is said that only in social context does the self have significance. And it is true to state that our self-concept and self-esteem are predetermined by social environment. We rely on other people to provide a social reality that informs our thoughts, feelings, and action. Okay, so social reality. Okay, because we rely on other people to provide a social reality that informs our thoughts, our feelings, and actions. So kung ano daw yung nagiging resulta ng pakikipag-interaction natin sa ibang tao, it provides us with this so-called social reality wherein nako-customize natin yung pag-iisip natin, yung feelings natin, yung emotions natin, yung pagdedesisyon natin. Depende kung anong sitwasyon that we are in. Depende kung sino yung tao that we are, that we have for that particular moment. Okay? Kaya nga sinasabi that only in the social context that the self have significance. And it is true to state that our self-concept and self-esteem are determined by social environment. Okay. So, now we proceed to discussion of the self as the product of modern society. Okay, self as the product of modern society. So self-identity is now crucial to a person's understanding of his or her inner self. And according to the fundamental principle of self-development, the self is not existent at birth. Rather, it develops while growing through social experiences. Modernization transformed the self into a delocalized self. Pag sinabi nating delocalized self, this is the self that is free to pursue its own identity. And this is the self that is no longer bound by pre-established traditional norms. Okay? Meron siyang kalayaan kung ano yung gusto niyang gawin, kung ano yung gusto niyang paniwalaan. And these are all the effects of modernization, of the advent of technology. And because of this, it poses several problems. Okay? Ano daw yung mga problema? Because of this modernization. Okay? Kasi nga sabi, di ba, na-delocalize na yung self. Okay, so the newfound freedom threatens the very authenticity of the self. Okay, so because of social media, we are free to create our uh, our our personality or different personalities in social media. Okay, wala namang magsasabi sa atin, oy bawal yan, o wag mong gawin yan, o ganito. Okay, and because of that freedom, it threatens the authenticity of the self. Nawawalan na tayo ng yung totoong tayo. Okay? Kasi, di ba, pag nakikita natin sa social media, um, in na in, tanggap naman ng public na yung mga nagpapatangos ng ilong. Mas papagawa ko na rin yan. Okay? Para maging in ako. Kailangan ganito, kita mo yung mga nakikita natin sa social media na mga sexy, mga hunk. Okay? So, we can do something para ma-achieve natin yon because of the technology and because of the modernization. Okay? Nangyayari lahat to because of this freedom that we have. Nawawala na yung talagang tayo. Okay? Ina-alter na natin. Okay? So, next is alienation, wherein the individuals are being hunted by the very image they have created. Alienation, kasi nga, since nawawala na yung authentic self mo, hindi mo nakilala yung sarili mo. Okay? And then, pag, diba, nagparitohay ka ng ilong, no? So, yung mga old pictures mo, hindi na siya match kung ano ka ngayon. Okay, so sasabihin ng family mo, sino to? Parang hindi na ikaw to. Okay, so ni-alienate ka na. Okay, and then because of this technology, because of modernization, again, nagkakaroon tayo ng objectification of the body. Okay, kaya nga, di ba, yung mga nagpaparito, kaya nagpapaliposuction, and so on and so forth. To the point that the dehumanization of the self. Okay, so para na tayong si Frankenstein. Okay? So, kung ano-ano na yung ginagawa natin sa sarili natin, just in order to fit in. Because we wanted to be accepted by the society, right? So, sino ba naman ang gusto na walang friends? Diba? So, since most of the time, di ba, hawak natin ang mga gadget natin, even ang klase is online, so nakikita natin lahat yan. And parang nagiging companion na nga natin siya, yung gadgets na yan. And because of that, kung ano yung mga nakikita natin, na naniniwala tayo na tanggap siya, na okay lang siyang gawin. Okay? However, because of this freedom, nagkakaroon ng mga problemang ito. Okay. So, but, meron naman solusyon. Anong solusyon? Okay? Repressive social restriction must be removed in order for people to discover their actual selves and reach their full potential. So, ibig sabihin, wag tayong magpapaalipin sa social media. Hindi porke nakikita natin sa social media, ibig sabihin, dapat gagawin na natin siya. Okay? Na kailangan gawin natin siya. Okay? Na kailangan masundan natin siya para mas marami tayong maging kaibigan, para mas katanggap-tanggap tayo. So, hindi dapat ganon. Okay? So, we have to have these boundaries. Kailangan may boundaries tayo kung kung ano yung nakikita natin, kailangan it doesn't mean na gagayahin natin lagi. Okay? Kailangan pinag-iisipan. Kailangan mas pagtuunan natin ng pansin kung ano ba tayo, kung ano yung meron tayo. Okay? Kasi, and then, pagtanggap natin kung ano tayo, then, we can reach our full potential. Kasi, we are free. We can express ourselves the way we want to, na walang tayong masyadong iniisip, no? So, yun yung solution para hindi natin maging problema. Okay? Hindi tayo maging alipin ng modernization. Okay? So, self as a necessary fiction. Okay? So, what are Nietzsche's necessary fictions? Anong ibig sabihin nito? Okay? So, according to Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, cultural critic, philologist, and a philosopher. He said that although they cannot always be verified to be true and occasionally can be, they are nonetheless vital for maintaining existence. These beliefs fulfills the desire for stability because all belief systems, according to Nietzsche, are necessary fictions, since they cannot be supported by evidence. They are essential because without them, we would be lost in an unpredictable environment. People require a sense of certainty in a world that is always changing, which is why these fictions are vital. And in order to make sense of the chaos of lived events, necessary fictions are used. They are definitions of what feelings, action signifies a certain moment. A cohesive and all-encompassing story can be made out of one's experiences, but it cannot be supported by evidence. And as a result, it is temporary and false. According to Nietzsche, he asserted that there is no truth. There are only viewpoints and interpretations. We make up the truth to meet our wants. What we perceive to be true or real is really just a reflection of our hopes and fears. According to him, truth involves a relation of condition to an object. And this partnership assumes certain individual objectives, passions, and ideals. In other words, reality is a necessary illusion and a prejudiced, partial point of view for every given person. Although we are allowed to think that our conclusions accurately depict how the world is constructed, we can never be sure. We can only be definite about the actual world we experience through our senses and organize via our intellect into necessary illusions. He believed that an individual's actions, thoughts, and feelings together make up the self. And these experiences are not what make up a true self, but the idea of a true self emerge from the presumptive oneness of these experiences. To him, the only real world we can be assured of is the one we currently living in. He was extremely bothered by the human misery as well as the human brutality, and his curiosity about how to accept his bodily life and live it to the utmost without dismissing the suffering and the ambiguity inherent in human situation was a natural extension of these worries. To him, the reason why we must undertake this difficult task of self-cultivation is the realization that we need to free ourselves of narcissism and its pathological symptoms found within the self, particularly if we are going to achieve a temperate and a mature ego that is healthy for both the self and the others. Okay? So, the postmodern view of self. Self is complicated by the virtual interaction of the cyber self that are mediated by technology, like changes in appearance. Apparently, according to N. Green, self is digitalized in cyberspace. We are creating a virtual representation of who we are in cyberspace, wherein the self is seen in websites or social media such as Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and so on and so forth. Okay? So, nadi-digitalize na ang self sa cyberspace. Okay? Because we can create ang iba't ibang version of who we are. Okay? Pwede nating baguhin yung itsura natin because of the filters. Pwede nating baguhin yung mood natin, kung ano yung gusto natin ipakita sa social media. Okay? So, pwede natin gawin lahat ito. Okay? Because of the modern technology. Okay? So, paano natin nasasabi that the self is being digitalized in cyberspace? Okay? So, ang manifestation niyan is that the information technology dislocates the self. Thus, the self is digitalized in cyberspace. Okay? Nadi-dislocate daw yung self kasi nadi-digitalize na. We can create several versions of who we are. Also, the global migration produces a multicultural identities. A global migration. So, ibig sabihin, it is the movement, yung movement ng tao, hindi na restricted sa isang lugar. We have the freedom, the ability to go from one place to another. Okay? So, nagkakaroon na tayo ng diversity sa culture. And because diverse yung culture na sa isang grupo, okay, nagkakaroon tayo ng multicultural identities. Siyempre, no, we have to adapt ourselves to the situation that we are in. So, for example, lumaki ako sa Maynila. So, iba yung situation, iba yung environment ko sa Manila. And then, I relocate here in the province. So, ibang-iba din yung setting, ibang environment din. Iba rin yung mga tao, ibang behavior din. However, I have to adapt. Okay? I have to adapt to my environment. Kaya na i-incorporate ko kung ano yung kultura here, tapos na i-mix ko siya o na-incorporate ko siya sa kultura na pinalakihan ko sa Manila. Okay? And that is just the local migration. So, what if it's a global migration, di ba? Yung mga ibang lahi, okay? The foreigners can go from one country to another. Okay? Then, mix na rin yung cultures nila sa kultura natin. Okay? Also, the postmodern selves are pluralized selves. Okay, so hindi na tayo homogeneous, di ba? Nagkakaroon na tayo ng the mixture. Okay? mixture kasi na-adapt na natin kung ano yung kultura, kung ano yung behavior ng isang individual, na-adapt na natin siya. Okay, so nagiging pluralized na yung self. Okay, so in contemporary literature, the self can be defined by the following characteristics. Okay, so these are the characteristics of the self. Okay, that the self is separate, independent, and self-contained, consistent, unitary, and private. So pag sinabi nating separate as a characteristic of the self, separate because it is distinct from other selves. Distinct. We are always unique and we have our own identity. Kahit na sabihin mo na twins yan o kahit na sabihin mo na lagi niyang kasama yung isang taong to, ibang kultura, so magiging ganun na din siya. No? We all have our uniqueness. Iba pa din tayo sa ibang tao. Okay? We are still distinct from others. Okay? Independent and self-contained, pag sinabi naman natin yan, because the self can exist. Its distinctiveness allows its self-contained thoughts, characteristics, and volition. Because we are unique, because we are distinct, okay? We are independent, and we are self-contained. We have our own thoughts, we have our own feelings, we have our own emotions. Okay, so yun yung ibig sabihin ng independent and self-contained. Now we proceed to consistent. Okay, so consistent. Consistent yung self-trait, consistent yung potential, yung characteristics, yung skills. Okay, yung talent. Okay, it can be more or less the same. Okay, pwedeng ganun pa din siya, nag-improve lang ng kaunti o nag-improve lang, but still the same, siya pa din yun. Okay, so kung naging consistent pa rin tayo, kung halimbawa, ito yung paniniwala mo ngayon, na naniniwala ka that it is necessary for us to follow the 10 Commandments para magkaroon tayo ng harmonious life, peaceful life, di ba? So, kahit na matanda ka na, ganun pa rin, consistent ka pa rin, yun pa rin ang paniniwala mo. Okay? Na kailangan pa rin sundin ang 10 Commandments. Okay. Unitary. Pag sinabi mo namang unitary, it centers on experiences and thoughts that run through with certain individual. Okay, so unitary. This is my experiences. These are my thoughts. Okay, so unitary ako. Okay, so hindi ko kailangan ng ibang tao para makapag-isip ako, para ma-express ko yung nararamdaman ko. Okay, then private. Each person sorts out information, feelings, emotion, and thoughts processed by themselves. So private, di ba? I have my own feeling, I have my own emotions, I know I have my own thought process, okay? And kung may problema ako, I can sort it out, di ba? So that is private. So these are all the characteristics of the self, okay? So now we proceed to the social construction of the self. Okay, so a sociological approach to self and identity begins with the assumption that there is a reciprocal relationship between the self and the society. So ibig sabihin, it coexists, right? The self and the society. The self influences society through the actions of individuals, thereby creating a group. Right? So self influences society, okay, thereby creating a group, organizations, and institutions. And reciprocally, the society influences the self through its shared language and meaning. So, society exists to serve the individual. It is in the society that an individual is surrounded and encompassed by culture as a societal force. So it is in the society again that a person has to conform to the norms, occupy statuses, and become members of the group. Okay? Kasi nga, di ba, we have to coexist with other people. We have to adapt ourselves. 'Di ba? Sa isang grupo, kailangan we have to, otherwise magiging outcast tayo, 'di ba? Pag hindi tayo natutong makisama. Okay? So self is created through socialization process. Self is created through socialization process. Kaya nga, 'di ba, we constantly interact, we constantly develop, we constantly learn with all those through those socialization. Kaya kanina, 'di ba, yung sinabi ko sa inyo, when the self is being isolated from others, from the society, hindi na di-develop. Okay? Because yung mga true stories ng mga feral children, ng mga castaway, ng mga humanoids. Diba? So yun, malaking bagay yung society sa development ng isang tao. Okay? So, self is created through socialization process. It is not discovered. However, people are not helpless victims of socialization. The person actively negotiate for his or her definition of himself or herself. So, ibig sabihin, since we have those characteristics of the self, right? Meron tayong kapasidad na mag-isip, magdesisyon, and we can always decides kung ano yung gusto nating gayahin o kung paano tayo mag-a-adapt, kung paano tayo makikisama. Okay? Kung ano man tayo ngayon, hindi ibig sabihin, kasalanan ng society yan, ay kasalanan ng environment yan. No, because we are actively, okay? We are actively participating, okay? We are actively interacting. We are not helpless victims of socialization. We actively negotiate, okay? For our statuses, personal statuses, or how we define ourselves. Okay? So, language. Language, like symbol, is a social tools for the acquisition of the self. Okay? We construct ourselves based on our social duties through socialization agents. Ano yung mga socialization agents? The family, the school, and the community. Diba? So those are the socialization agent. Our bodies age biologically. Okay? Alam naman natin yan na lahat tayo tumatanda. Ng katawang ito ay wear and tear, di ba? But the self is something that emerges through social interaction. So kahit na tumatanda yung katawan natin, patuloy pa rin tayong nadidevelop through our social interaction. Therefore, the self is developed as we age and as we grow. It is not something innate or biological. Your self develops through the interaction with others and through reflecting on that interaction to think about how others are perceiving you, and that helps you generating an image of yourself. Right? Kasi 'di ba nakikiramdam ka nga sa kapaligiran mo, 'di ba? So kung may ginagawa ka, yung isang behavior mo na hindi nagustuhan ng ibang tao, kaya ka nasimangutan, kaya ka napagalitan, kaya ka nalayuan. Okay? Ibig sabihin, alam mo na hindi mo na dapat yun inuulit kung gusto mo na hindi ka mawalan ng kaibigan. Okay? So, kailangan maging observant ka, okay, sa kapaligiran mo. Okay? So, para maging continuous yung iyong development. So, sinabi natin kanina that the socialization agents consists of the family, the culture, and the community. So, alam naman natin, di ba, that una tayong natututo within the family, di ba? And as a child is born, there is this givenness and the disposition inherited from his parents' genes. Di ba? Meron tayong mga namamanang mga traits. Okay? And the kind of family that we are born in, the resources available to us. So, ibig sabihin lang yan, since yung family and the first point of contact natin, the first teachers natin, yung family members natin, okay? Nasi-shape niya kung anong behavior natin. Paglabas natin ng family, when we start schooling, di ba? So, kung ano yung behavior mo sa bahay, kung paano ka mag-behave sa bahay, madadala mo yan sa school, di ba? And then, because of the influence of other people, okay, so marami ka ring natututunan, nare-refine yung behavior mo. Okay? Kaya nga, di ba? habang yung bata'y lumalaki, palayo na siya ng palayo sa family niya, mas gusto niya ng kasama yung mga friends, imbis na yung mother or yung father or yung immediate family, because it's how he or she develops himself through his constant interaction with others, and then nagkakaroon siya ng sense of purpose, okay, with his or her involvement in the community, okay, and kaya lahat nagsisimula sa family. Okay? So, sinabi niya, the kind of family that we are born in, the resources available to us, and the kind of development that we will have will certainly affect us. Human person learns the way of living and the selfhood within the family. So, di ba yun, the babies internalizes the ways and the styles they have observed from their family, di ba? So, yung mga babies natin, yung mga bata na kasama natin sa bahay, di ba? They don't know. Natututo sila because of ginagaya nila yung mga nakakatanda sa kanila, ginagawa nilang model. Kaya makikita mo kung anong klase ang family members ng batang yun sa behavior ng bata. Kasi sino pa bang tutularan niya kundi yung mga nakapaligid sa kanya, 'di ba? And sinasabi nga that without the family, biologically and socially, a person may not even survive or become human person. Diba? So, itong phrase na to, without the family, biologically and socially, a person may not even survive or become human person. Kaya, nagpapatotoo din yun na yung mga nangyari dun sa mga feral child, dun sa mga castaway, malaking bagay ang influence ng family sa behavior, sa development ng isang individual. Okay? So now we proceed to, according to Marcel Mauss, a French anthropologist, self remains the same person, yet adapts in society as a chameleon. See, we learn to adapt. Diba? Kasi pag hindi tayo natutong mag-adapt sa environment natin, ay matutulad tayo sa mga dinosaurs, no? Na magiging extinct. Kasi hindi tayo nag-adapt. Diba? So, the self remains the same person, yet adapts in society as a chameleon. Kailangan natin makibagay kung saan, depende sa situation that we are in. So, for example, introvert ka. Okay, so introvert, mahiyain, hindi pala kwento, tahimik lang. However, ang trabaho mo ay teacher, di ba? So, hindi ka naman pwedeng tahimik lang kung teacher ka, di ba? You have to talk, you have to interact with your students, right? So, you have to adapt to the situation that you are in. Okay? So, parang sinasabi na, we have to adapt in a society as a chameleon. Kasi otherwise, we will be extinct. Okay? So, according to Marcel, there are two phases of the self. He said, we have persone and moi. So, persone is acting based on social concept and social roles one has to do. While the moi is a person's basic identity. It is a person's sense of who he is, his body, and his biological givenness. So persone, therefore, is basically an influence of one's situation, a family, a religion, a nationality, or a behavior, given the expectation and influences from others. Kasi diba, sabi nga niya, there are two phases of the self, the persone and the moi. Persone, the acting, is acting based on social concept and social roles one has to do. Okay? So, kaya nga sinasabi, therefore, it is basically an influence of one situation, a family, a religion, a national behavior, given the situation, the expectation, and the influence from the others. Okay. So, given that self-image was developed in recognizing how others are perceiving us, Imitation then is our constant effort in putting ourselves in the shoes of others and think about how they are seeing this event or situation or this action transpiring. Kasi doon tayo natututo minsan, subukan ko nga kasi tinan mo, ang ganda ng effect sa kanya, masubukan niya para malaman ko kung effective din sa akin o hindi. Kung magiging successful din ako kapag magiging role model ko siya, kapag kagagayahin ko yung ginagawa niya. Okay? So imitation is our constant effort in putting ourselves in the shoes of others and think about how they are seeing this event or situation or the action is transpiring. Okay? Until finally, when we are fully socialized, we could take the viewpoint of the society in general. When this happens, we take on the final role as the generalized others. And by taking on the role of others, we can become self-aware. Kasi alam na natin kung ano yung, how does it feel to be in her shoes, di ba? Alam na natin kung ano ang mangyayari kapag ginawa natin to. Okay, kaya tayo nagiging aware. Okay, we take on the final role as the generalized others. Okay. So, now we proceed to George Herbert Mead. So, si George ay isang American sociologist and well-recognized for being one of the founders of social psychology, okay? American pragmatism and symbolic interaction theory. His writing places a strong emphasis on the process of self-development and are well-recognized for his social self-theory, wherein he combines the concept of self, the me, and the I. According to George Herbert Mead, self maintains that the conception a person holds of himself in his mind emerges from the social interaction with others. This means that the self is neither initially there at birth nor necessarily at the beginning of social interaction, but is constructed and is reconstructed in the process of social experience and activity. Okay, so wala daw pinanganak sa atin, okay, na ayan, alam mo na kung ano ka, kung sino ka, at kung anong gagawin mo. Okay, natututo tayo because of our interaction with other people. Okay? So, according to him, there are two components of the self. We have the I, where the I is the self as the subject. It is the response to the me or the person's individuality. It is the essence of the agency in human action. It is the response of an individual to the attitudes of the others, and it is the individual's impulses. Yung me naman is the self as the object, represents the expectation and attitudes of others organized into social self. So the me is how we believe the generalized others sees us. So it is what we learn through interaction with others. Therefore, the me is the organized set of attitudes of others which an individual assumes. The me is the accumulated understanding of the generalized others, that is how one thinks, one group perceive oneself. Therefore, the I is the knower and the me is the known. The mind or the stream of thoughts is the self-reflective movement of the interaction between the I and the me. And these dynamics go beyond selfhood and form the basis of the theory of human cognition. For Mead, the thinking process is the internalized dialogue between the I and the me. For him, the existence in a community comes before individual consciousness. First, One has to participate in the different social position within the society, and only subsequently can one use that experience to take the perspective of others and become self-conscious. Kasi nga, di ba, kanina na-mention natin about imitation, di ba? Kasi we learn through imitation. Okay? So, ganun din sinasabi dito. Okay? So, sinasabi lang that uh, we first, one has to participate in the different social position within the society, and only subsequently can one use the experience to take the perspective of others and become self-conscious. Therefore, the individual define his or her own behavior with reference to the generalized attitudes of the social group he or she occupies. And when the individual views himself from the standpoint of the generalized others, self-consciousness is attained. From this standpoint, the generalized others is the major instrument of social control, for it is the mechanism by which the society exercises control over the conduct of its individual member. For Mead, existence in a community comes before individual consciousness. First, one must participate in the different social position within the society, and only subsequently one can use that experience to take the perspective of others and thus become self-conscious. So these are the different social positions. Okay, so we have the primary socialization, the secondary socialization, the group socialization, and the organizational socialization. Kapag sinabi nating primary socialization, it occurs when a child learns the attitudes, the values, the actions appropriate to individuals as member of a particular culture. So that's the primary socialization. Doon tayo natututo, okay, within the family. Okay? Na kung ano yung tama, kung ano yung mali, kung ano yung tanggap, kung ano yung hindi tanggap, kung ano yung masama, so on and so forth. Okay? So that is the primary socialization. Then we have the secondary socialization. And this refers to the process of learning the appropriate behavior as a member of a smaller group within a larger society. So this is the time naman na pag yung bata, okay, lumalabas na sa family circles kasi nagsisimula na siyang mag-school. And then sa school, marami na siyang mamimit na new friends. Okay, so ito yung sinasabi na secondary socialization. Okay, it refers to the process of learning the appropriate behavior as a member of the smaller group within a larger society. Then we have the group socialization. It is the theory that an individual's peer group, rather than the parental figures, influences his or her personality and behavior in adulthood. Okay, so since lagi nang lag, since yung bata meron na siyang new sets of friends, okay, nag-i-enjoy na siya dun sa new sets of friends kasi doon sa labas, outside the family circle, na e-express niya yung sarili niya. Okay? Kaya, most of the time, kasama niya na yung mga friends niya kumpara sa being with the parents. Okay? So, that's part of the development. Okay? Then we have the organizational socialization. Okay, di ba? Doon sa group socialization, doon na yung uh, uh, period ng development ng bata na tinatawag na gang stage. Okay? Kasi nga, di ba, meron na siyang sets of friends. At doon sa circle of friends na yon na mold o nadidevelop yung nagkakapag-acquire siya ng mga different behaviors. Okay? And then, pag nag-mature na siya, then the organizational situation kicks in. So it is the process whereby an employee learns the knowledge and the skills necessary to assume his or her organizational role. So this is about you have to fit in a much wider circle. Okay, halimbawa pagka nagtrabaho ka na, pumasok ka na sa isang kumpanya, right? So you have to learn the ropes, you have to learn the culture in order to fit in. And you have to be in line with the organizational goal, di ba? Kasama ka na dun sa grupo para isang goal lang, um, isang uh, uh, goal lang dapat na ang i-achieve ninyo sa isang company para mag-survive o para maging successful. Okay? So, sabi din ni Mead, naniniwala siya that there are 3 stages of the development of the self. Okay? So, the first stage is what we call the preparatory stage. This is from newborn up to 2 years old. This stage is when children mimic those around them. So, ayun na nga, di ba? Nandun pa lang siya within the family circle. Kung ano yung nakikita niya, yun yung ginagaya niya. Okay? And then the stage 2. The stage 2 is what we call the play stage. This is from 2 years old up to 6 years old. Okay? And during this stage, children play, pretend, and do not adhere to the rules in an organized games. So example, a child pretend to be daddy or mommy that they know. Okay? So yung role play. Okay? So they pretend daddy and mommy and they make their own rules kung paano maging daddy, kung paano maging mommy kasi hindi pa nila masyadong naiintindihan o napoprocess yung mga nakikita nila within their environment. Right? Kasi gayahin lang nila yung si mommy o si daddy o kung sino man yung significant person na lagi nilang kasama. And they don't adhere to authority in an organized game. Okay? Then we have the stage 3 or the game stage. This is from the age of reasoning, from 11 years old onwards. Okay? And in this stage, children begin to understand and adhere to the rules of the game. They play more formalized games because they begin to understand other people's perspective or the perspective of the generalized others. The generalized others refers to the viewpoint of the social group at large. Okay, so ito na, di ba? So they conform, okay? They follow the rules pag nandito na sa stage na to. Because, syempre, pag hindi nila ginawa yun, na hindi sila nag-follow ng rule, magiging outcast sila, di ba? And alam naman natin that at that age, at this age, mas gusto nila na kasama nila yung mga peers nila, yung mga friends nila, more na mas na kasama yung mga magulang nila o family circle. Okay? So now we proceed to the definition or the distinction of gender and sex. Okay? So, gender and the self. Kapag sinabi natin sex, okay? So sex is biologically determined. Kapag sinabi natin sex, it's just male and female. That's sex. It's biologically determined. Pag sinabi naman natin gender, gender has something that is subjected to change, alteration, and development. So, depende kung kung paano mo um, gustong i-express yung personality mo. Okay? So, it is subjected to change, alteration, and development. Ibig sabihin, kung ikaw ay babae, okay, even if it is biologically determined that you are female, however, if you want to express kung ano yung gusto mo talaga na sinasabi mo that you have this attraction to same sex, okay? So that's gender because it is something that is you can alter, you can change, okay? And you can develop by the influence of your environment. You can either develop or you can either unlearn, okay, that behavior. So at the end of the day, you will still decide. Okay, so it is important to give on the leeway to find, express, and live our identity. Our gender partly illustrates or determine how we see ourselves in the world. It is the society's expectation to its member. Okay, so we determine how we see ourselves in the world. So we determine that. We decide on that. Okay? So now we proceed to the looking glass self theory ni Charles Horton Cooley. Okay? And the theory states that the part of how we see ourselves is how others sees us. Okay? So this was conceptualized by a sociologist, Carlos Cooley, and it refers to the process by which people build their sense of self on how they think other people see them. People judge their own worth, the values, their behaviors by the opinion of others, using social interaction as a kind of mirror in this process. And this theory is noteworthy because it contends that social contexts, rather than solitary confinement, are where self-concept is developed. So again, sinasabi that it is para mas ma-develop tayo, it is the society plays a big role. Okay? Hindi tayo madidevelop kapag tayo ay isolated, if we live in solitary confinement. Okay? And in this approach, society and individual are two distinct phenomena that are to be understood independently. So magkaiba ang society at individual, but they have to coexist. They are interrelated because they need each other. Okay? So natututo yung tao within his constant interaction with other people. And then ang society naman ay nag-establish, nag-grow, nag-strengthen because of the involvement of individual, the interaction of individual from his or her fellow individual. Okay? So now we proceed to labeling bias. So labeling bias occurs when we are labeled and others' views and expectation of us are affected by that label. The danger is that when those expectations starts to become self-fulfilling prophecies and our self-concept and behavior starts to align with it. Okay, so naniniwala na tayo. Pinaniniwalaan na natin. Okay, kasi lagi nating naririnig, laging sinasabi natin. Laging sinasabi sa atin. So, unti-unti, naniniwala na tuloy tayo. Okay? Then we have this so-called confirmation bias. Confirmation bias, it is a cognitive bias that favors information that confirms our previously in existing belief or biases. So for instance, that someone holds the opinion that left-handed people are more creative than the right-handed ones. So the individual gives more weight to proof that confirms what they already believe. If they came across someone who is both left-handed and creative, even more, this person might ignore examples that contradicts their beliefs in favor of looking for evidences that strengthen them. Okay, so yung confirmation bias. Cognitive bias that favors information that confirms our previously existing beliefs or bias. Okay? So if we are repeatedly labeled and evaluated by others, then self-labeling may occur. So self-labeling happens when we adapt others' labels explicitly into our self-concept, thus affecting our self-esteem and may experience internalized prejudice. Internalized prejudice occurs when an individual turns prejudice directed towards them by others unto themselves. Thus, it has been found to predict more negative self-concept and poorer psychological adjustment in members of various groups. Okay? So, now we proceed to social comparison. Social comparison theory is our sense of self is influenced by comparison with others. Social comparison occurs when we learn about our abilities and skills, about the appropriateness and validity of our opinions, and about our relative social status. by comparing our own attitudes, beliefs, behavior with those of others. And this occurs when we learn about our abilities and skills, about appropriateness and validity of our opinions, and about our relative social status by comparing our own attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors with those of others. Okay? So, for example, kapag ka meron kayong papuntahang birthday party, okay, so naaligagana kayo, sabihin niyo, what will I wear for the party? Okay. So, particularly in this example, we are using the behavior of others as a basis of comparison. We also use social comparison to help us determine our skills, abilities, either how good we are or not. Okay, kasi syempre, iisipin mo, pupunta ako doon, tapos ito yung suot ko, mag-outcast ako kasi hindi bagay, kasi ito yung mga suot ng mga bisita doon. Okay, so yun yung sinasabi. Behavior of others become others as the basis of comparison. Another example. Okay? So, itong mga estudyante, when they, after exam, after the quiz, they will going to ask, what is the passing score of the exam, ma'am? Diba? So, you will ask. Okay, student asks. So, in this example, the student is seeking to use social comparison to evaluate performance. Okay, kasi tinatanong mo di ba? Kasi gusto mong malaman kung ilan yung nakuha ng isang klase para mag-gauge mo. Matalino ba to? Hindi ba to matalino? Mas matalino ba ako dito? Mas matalino siya sa akin. Okay, so yun. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng comparison. Okay? So, that is social comparison. And that ends the presentation for the sociological view of self.